Hi everyone, welcome back to Mummy Matters. Our guest today is an accredited IBCLC consultant who has come on this episode to give us the truth about breastfeeding. She'll be busting any myths as well as advising the best way to have a positive breastfeeding journey. It's my pleasure to introduce Isabel Jordon.
Hi, I'm a trained nurse and I've worked in various different settings as a trained nurse. I've been an La Leche League leader, which is a breastfeeding counsellor with the voluntary sector for 16 years, and an IBCLC for 9 years. And an IBCLC is a lactation consultant. It basically stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. I've helped many mothers and trained a few to become peer supporters. I'm currently supporting a mum at the moment to become a La Leche League leader, and I help run La Leche League of Leicester with my co-leader Helen. I also have 2 children who are teenagers, both of whom were successfully breastfed.
Perfect. So let's just start by saying, what is a lactation consultant and what do you actually do? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that probably don't even know you exist. I didn't know my first 2. With my third, I heard about lactation consultants. But yeah, so if you want to give us a breakdown of what you do, what you are, what you're about.
Okay, so a lactation consultant, an IBCLC, is somebody who has spent at least, there are different pathways to becoming a lactation consultant, and one of those is the voluntary sector. Via the voluntary sector, you have to have done so many hours one-to-one helping, and that's usually considered done if you've done 5 years as a volunteer breastfeeding counsellor. You then have to undertake 95 hours of related study within the year before you take the exam. Mm-hmm. So that usually constitutes conferences or training days related to breastfeeding and ethics and some related topics, but a certain number of those have to be related to lactation. You then take a 4-hour exam after that on breastfeeding and child development. And then you have to recertify every 5 years, and they're just currently changing the guidelines around that. So the exam, you don't have to do it via exam. You can do it by just proving that you've done so many hours training within the last 5 years and continue to help mothers in one-to-one settings. So that's what a lactation.
That's a lot of experience behind you, basically.
Yes, it is.
That's good. So my other question was, are all lactation consultants accredited?
No, unfortunately, it's not a protected title, so anybody can call themselves a lactation consultant. And so you need to look for the IBCLC afterwards to know that you're getting, and we're considered the gold standard in lactation, I think, still. So yeah.
You're the people to go to.
Yeah.
Good. So let's get straight into it. What helps a mother produce milk, and are there any specific things that you think will help?
So basically your baby will help you produce milk. Being pregnant, mm-hmm. delivering, and having your baby there is your biggest support in helping you produce milk. And the biggest thing is getting the baby to feed, latch effectively. And the more your baby spends at the breast, the more milk you make. Skin to skin is also really, really important. If you can possibly, and birth is very, very unpredictable, but there are certain things in birth that can not help with breastfeeding successfully. Lots and lots of intervention, lots and lots of separation. Some of the pain medication doesn't help. Obviously, some of those things we cannot help. Birth is unpredictable. But the thing that really helps to turn that around is skin to skin and keeping your baby skin to skin as soon as you can, and breastfeeding and latching effectively.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because personally I've got three little kids. With my first, I had a tear when I gave birth, so they passed baby on to my husband while they stitched me up, and it actually took me around, I think, 6 months for my baby to actually learn to latch and feed properly. It took ages. And with my second and third, I made it a point that regardless of what's happened, as soon as baby comes out, I want baby on me straight. And I honestly believe that is the reason why they took to feeding so well, that it was almost instant. So it's like almost like that golden hour in motherhood, like try and get them straight on, and then hopefully your body will just start doing what it needs to do, really.
And it's you know, in those situations, it's everybody working around and making sure that skin to skin happens. If it really can't happen, then skin to skin with dad is next best, because that baby's still getting that skin to skin and is still being kept calm and regulated, because that's the other thing that skin to skin does. But yeah, it's better if mum can do the skin to skin.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So are there any specific food or drink that will help with lactation?
Right, so the biggest issue around not producing enough milk is the fact that the baby is not getting access or time spent at the breast, and is not transferring milk efficiently. They are the main things. No lotion or potion will help unless that is happening first. Okay, there are some galactagogues, and I don't really want to go into them too much. There is a book I refer to. Obviously, remaining hydrated and getting a healthy, balanced diet is really good. But what happens is the mother goes down first. So if you start feeling ill or not right, then it's worth paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Because it's nature's way of protecting baby and milk supply.
Yeah. So I've seen these lactation cookies that are being advertised, and I've heard a lot about them. I think I've even had a few mums that have asked me about them. Do they really work?
There's always that what do you call it, the psychological element, a placebo effect.
Yeah.
You know, where you give someone and they believe that it helps. It might be that they help you feel more confident, and lactation teas, and yes, there are stuff around fenugreek, these things, but that's why, you know, the most important thing is that we remove the milk and it's removed efficiently. And that is the most important thing to help maintain milk supply. I mean, oats, yeah, great. It's part of a healthy diet. Yeah, we have porridge, but not really. It can be nice.
Yeah. What should mothers who are breastfeeding look out for while they're feeding, and what remedies can they use to help?
So when you're breastfeeding a baby, it shouldn't hurt. If there's an initial pain when the baby goes on but it goes off, it's okay. As long as it's not causing damage and trauma. You should learn what a baby swallowing sounds like. That's really important, and it's a soft sound, not a click, not like that, but a soft sound, because we need to hear that every suck or every 2 sucks. More often than that, maybe baby's not getting enough milk. We need to watch on the nappies, making sure that we've got enough wet and dirty nappies. And can I say right now that a baby under 6 weeks needs to poo at least once a day, if not 2 or 3 times a day. And it's after the first week, it's yellow seedy poo. Under 6 weeks. After 6 to 8 weeks, that changes. A baby can poo once a day, once every other day, or even once a week, but it's a poonami. But before 6 weeks, it's at least once a day. They're the main things. It shouldn't hurt. Learning to hear what your baby swallows like, and the poo and the wet nappies are the main things to look out for. Okay.
So is there any problems that you can get while you're breastfeeding?
Mastitis, the blocked ducts, they're the most common ones, yes. Mastitis literally means inflammation of the breast. And it's usually because there's milk stasis, babies suddenly change their feeding routine, or you've had a bra that's cutting in, or a sling that's cutting in, or maybe changing the way you've slept at night. And it's usually an occlusion, or holding the breast while the baby feeds. It can back the milk up sometimes and mean that you get a blockage.
So what do you do in that situation if someone was going through stuff?
I'm just helping a mum today, actually. So heat, massage has become a little bit controversial. I think vibration, so using the back of a toothbrush. There is this wonderful gizmo out there that you can buy that basically vibrates the breast. But to be honest, and I hope you'll forgive me for saying this, a vibrator underneath the breast can be just as good, and a pump on that breast.
Yeah.
There's an Epsom salt bath that you can do, particularly if it's a blocked duct or a bleb. That a bleb is like, it's like a white pimple that forms on the end of the nipple. It's extremely painful, and basically what it means is that there's a blocked duct just underneath the surface. And if you can get, I don't know if people have seen a hacker, with warm water and Epsom salts in it, maybe a tablespoonful, and that can really help unblock it. They're the main things, I think, that the most common things that can go wrong.
Okay, so we have a thing on our podcast that we like to bust the myths that surround the topics that we're doing, and with breastfeeding we've heard so many. I mean, I personally have been through so many that I've heard of, so I'm gonna shout them out to you, and if you can kind of let us know you know, if there's any truth in them, really. So let me just get the questions up. So the first one: if baby is feeding regularly, you're not producing enough milk.
No, that's not true. So a breastfed baby will feed very, very frequently sometimes. They do get into a rhythm, but there are times, like, we call them growth spurts or developmental leaps. I hate the term sleep regression. We're moving forward. They do go through these times where they feed constantly. And it is like almost one day. I remember my first, and it's a long time ago. My daughter's now 19, and my husband left for work, and he came back 10 hours later, and I was still on the sofa.
That was me with baby number 2.
Yeah.
Just constant feeding. constant
feeding. As long as it's only for a few days, and then you may notice that their rhythm has changed. Then that's normal. I mean, they can do it for so many different reasons, you know, usually that you've got a way to stay with somebody else. That's always fun because they want to play. Or they've got chicken pox, they've got teething, snotty nose, tummy bug, you know, but there's loads of reasons why they do it, as long as it's not constant. Then
So just a few days and then they go back to some sort of routine.
Yeah.
Okay, breastfeeding is natural, so it'll be easy.
No. Well, ideally, in an ideal world, we get to all mothers and do antenatal sessions, which were cut during COVID, and they're just restarting, and then mothers would understand what is, you know, it makes it easier if you understand what you're facing. But no, it's and I think
you're on demand, aren't you?
You are on demand 24/7, but you are on demand 24/7, you know, whether you breastfeed or not, you know, that you have a baby, they are hard work. And it is one of the hardest things you can do is have a baby, but it's understanding that constant need is quite hard.
So small breasts don't make as much milk.
No, that's rubbish. You can breastfeed with any size breast. Sometimes there is a discrepancy between storage capacity, and with small breasts you might have to feed a little bit more frequently, but no,
doesn't make a difference.
No.
So you can't get pregnant when you're breastfeeding.
That is a myth. So if you are breastfeeding exclusively, and by exclusively I mean not using bottles or dummies, and co-sleeping safely, and attachment parenting, and carrying a baby in a sling, it is very, very unlikely that you will get pregnant. But once you've started solids and you've broken that sort of exclusive need on you, then yes, it's more likely. But I've known mums do that and still get pregnant really early on, so it's not you know, 100%.
So not all mums can produce milk.
So there are a tiny percentage of women, and it is tiny, it's definitely under 5%, although it might be a little bit larger than that with breast surgery thrown in, who cannot produce enough milk. But as a lactation consultant and those within the field, it's our job to make sure that that mother maintains the supply that she has, and there are things that can be done. So it's a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of women that can't produce enough milk. Obviously, surgery skews that.
Breastfeeding makes it difficult for dad and other members of the family to bond with baby.
No, well, no, it doesn't, because it's that network of support that you've got around you to look after mum. You can do baths, you can go for a little walk with the baby, you can change nappies. I know some people might not like doing that, but it's time to spend with that child. You can play with the baby, and looking after mum is looking after that baby.
Yeah.
So in those early weeks,
and that's the biggest takeaway. Looking after mum is looking after baby.
Baby,
Big one. So the next thing, if baby cries, you're not producing enough milk. So if they're constantly wanting feeds and crying, you're not producing enough milk.
No. I mean, there are sometimes babies aren't, and if you're worried, get help. And you might be your midwife, it might be your health visitor. Some of them are really good in breastfeeding, some of them are not so good. Call an IBCLC if you're worried. But no, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not producing enough milk. There are lots of different reasons that babies cry. Nappy, cold, hot, poorly, colic. Well, colic's a symptom of something else, but there's lots of reasons babies
cry. Their way
of
communicating, isn't it? That's their own form of communication, really.
And if you're struggling, get help.
Yeah. So the last one is, you should top up feeds so you know exactly the amount that they require to be healthy.
That is a really good way of stopping breastfeeding.
Really?
Topping up feeds, yes. The more bottles you give, I'm assuming you're talking about bottles.
Yeah. So like if they express and then give it in a bottle, just to see how much they're getting. Or the other way, giving formula.
Okay. Formula will reduce your milk supply, because if you give a bottle, you're replacing one feed, but formula not always, but can make a baby sleep a lot longer, because it's like it's not easy to digest. So that's 2 feeds you've missed. And then your milk supply will drop because you're not getting that stimulation of the breast. If you're pumping and giving breast milk, obviously you're pumping, so you're maintaining that supply, but you're introducing a bottle. And sometimes some babies tolerate that and sometimes they don't, and they can get something called, well, it used to be called nipple confusion, but it's actually, the teat of a bottle is much more hard, and a baby can get used to that, and often it's the flow from the bottle, because it just if you're not using paste bottle feeding, then it can just pour into the baby's mouth, and then when you put them back to the breast, they're having to work for that milk rather than it just pouring into their mouth, and they get frustrated. So pumping is also, it's not a pleasant thing to do. It's hard work on top of what you're already doing. So if you can avoid it, then I would.
Yeah, that's fine. So do you need to always know the required amount? Like, is there a required amount for a baby to be healthy, or is it because my understanding when I was breastfeeding my 3, it was your body will produce how much your baby needs, depending on how many times you put them on and all that kind of things. But ultimately your body will know how much to produce. So there'll be times where you produce more, there'll be times where you produce less, depending on your baby's appetite. Has that changed, that message?
Right. So as a lactation consultant, sometimes we need to know, because sometimes you're faced with quite difficult, tricky situations that you actually need to know how much this child is getting.
Right.
So we consider lactation somewhere between 600 mils and a litre a day.
Yeah.
Okay? That's quite a big gap if you think about it. It is much better as a mother, tune into your child, know what a sated baby looks like, that they're transferring milk properly, that they're feeding regularly, and their poo and their nappies, because what goes in has to come out. And if there's enough poo, yellow seedy poo after the first week, then they're generally getting the milk. And the last thing is weight gain, and the health professionals will be coming in to weigh babies and monitor that.
So what advice would you give as a lactation consultant to anyone who is maybe thinking about breastfeeding, or someone who already is, to make the journey easier?
Right, getting your network of support sorted out. Often there are loads of, around the country, there are loads and loads of different peer support groups, and finding your network of support. If you're struggling, know who to go to get help. We have Lactation Consultants of Great Britain website where you can find a local IBCLC who can help assess properly and help you if you're struggling. Or sometimes, there's La Leche League as well, or the NCT, whoever you have locally. There's the ABM. Around the country, it's very different, the services that are provided. Your local peer support, sometimes the NHS have peer support groups. It's looking for the people that are the specialists in your area around breastfeeding and who to go to.
Yeah, so you get the relevant and the accurate information. Yeah, which is so needed, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to give your details? If people want to contact you, where's the best place to contact you?
So it's my phone number. My phone number is 07906 040476. I'm also on Lactation Consultants of Great Britain. I do get word of mouth referrals locally in Leicester, and further afield sometimes as well. So yeah, if you want to contact me, and if you're somewhere else, we have a network of support. So if you can't find someone locally, I might know someone.
Perfect. Thank you so much for doing this. It was much needed. I think all these myths that we hear about breastfeeding, hopefully it's calmed a lot of people's minds down and they kind of know, what's real and what's not. But thank you for doing this, and we really appreciate you coming on.